Hello everyone, it's Matt here, I am back, and today we're going to be having a look at Lorde's new album, Melodrama. So yes, hello, I am back. Having been away for about 3 months, I'm quite astounded to see how much the channel has actually grown since then. I'm pretty pleased with that. And that's without me having to do a thing, so there you go, I should stay away from more often. I'm only joking, of course. Now, the main reason that I've been away is AS exams at the moment, and they're not much fun to be honest, but they have to be done. And admittedly, I have been spending most of my time focusing on them and doing mock exams and things like that, school stuff related really. As well as that, I have been focusing on my new and upcoming band, another project that I'm heavily involved with at the moment. But that is another topic for another day. I won't spend any more time really talking about that in this video because we need to get on and talk about Lorde, of course. He's dropped this absolute belter of an album about a month ago now, actually, admittedly. I really want to talk about this today for a number of reasons, really. Lorde has really proved to me that she is one of the best, most interesting pop artists around at the moment. Before she released this album, before I heard the lead single of the album, Green Light, I was a bit sceptical. I didn't really think much of her, I'm not going to lie. And it's one of those great examples of an artist that really changes how you feel about them when they release a new song. I love it. It's a fantastic album, I'm not going to lie. Obviously, there are pros and cons to it, which I'll discuss in a minute, but I've really enjoyed it. So let's go on with a little bit of history about Lorde and everything, and talk about her musical past. Lorde, whose real name is Ella Yelich O'Connor, was born in New Zealand and grew up there, hence the lovely accent that she has. I originally thought she was American because of the way she sang, but she's got a bit of a different twinge on the way she sings, which is nice. She changed her stage name to Lorde, maybe because her real name was quite difficult to pronounce, I don't know, but also because she was fascinated by royalty. She added the E on the end to make it sound a bit more feminine, which I think is pretty cool. And in 2013, she released her first album. It was called Pure Heroine. Before that, she'd had a little EP, and it was called the Love Club EP. I'd never really heard of it until she released the smash hit Royals, and everyone's heard Royals. It's a massive song. It was huge. I remember it first coming out on the radio and on MTV, and thinking, yeah, this is a good song. I enjoyed it, and then sort of kind of ignored it and went on with my life. But that's just a personal experience. It was massive, and one other thing I really remember from Lorde from this period was her performing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for Nirvana, which I thought was pretty weird considering she just dropped this song called Royals. It was very poppy. I really didn't expect anything like that from her. And she sang on a Nirvana song called All Apologies, which is one of my favourite Nirvana songs of the third album, In Utero. And she did a really good job of it. I mean, obviously, she's not Kurt Cobain, but it was an interesting twist on it. And actually, at that point, I started to think, okay, right, we might be seeing something here. This is interesting. Being a massive Nirvana fan, I was a little bit sceptical to begin with, but really enjoyed it. She also did a cover of Tears for Fears' Everybody Wants to Rule the World, I remember. I didn't enjoy this one so much. I feel like her version of the song really sort of ruined the aesthetic of the original. And whilst it was an interesting take, and I'm glad that she did something different with it, because in my opinion, all covers should be a little bit different, have their own artistic style on them. It wasn't my thing at all. So I had mixed feelings about Lorde going into this album, and I sort of hadn't really heard anything else by her, to be honest, I'm not going to lie. Until I heard Green Light on MTV. I was around my mate's house, we were at a party, and this song came on, and I just fell in love with it. I didn't know who it was to begin with. The music video I thought was fantastic, and Green Light, wow. I love it because it's not a conventional pop song. Max Martin, the god of pop, as people put him, who's been behind, I don't know, 20 odd #1 smash hits for Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, all these big pop icons. He called it incorrect songwriting, but I disagree with him there. I think it was fantastic. He sort of turned his nose up at it a little bit, but the way it is written is why it's such a good song. There's this key change that almost feels a little bit shoehorned into the song, but it works so well midway through. To start off with, it's just a simple sort of piano and singing. It felt almost like a ballad. With these sort of syncopated piano chords in the beginning, but it starts to build up, you get this nice little bit of bass coming in, and then all of a sudden the kick drum comes in, the key changes, And then as it reaches the chorus, the bass sort of drops into the piece. You've got these really nice airy synths over the top of it. And it is an astounding piece of music. I love it. The music video is really cool as well. It's just Lorde dancing on the top of a taxi. It's great. And I was really fascinated by this song, and I still am now actually, about a month and a half after she's released her album, and really enjoying it. Brilliant piece of work, and that really opened my eyes up to what Lorde could do as an artist. And so having heard that single, I thought, right, I've got to get the album now. And so I did, and I was very impressed. And since then, of course, she did a fantastic set at Glastonbury a few weeks ago now, which I watched. Not there, obviously, because I'm not rich and can't afford tickets, but you know. I watched it on the TV, and I really enjoyed it. It was good. It was a good set, peppered full of old hits that I've sort of rediscovered now. Never really heard them in the first place. Songs like Tennis Court and Teen, you know, that I still heard the names of, but never actually heard the songs themselves. And yeah, I'm really into it. It's good stuff. So let's just begin on this little album review, having gone over the bio of Lorde herself. I think a good place to start is with the title track. Obviously, it's not the title track, the lead single. We've talked about Green Light. The way the album is structured is very interesting, and the thematic concept of the album seems to be about a party, a house party. A lot of the songs are about effectively being young, being a teenager. There are obviously references to alcohol and drugs, I think, in their relationships, you know. And it makes a very interesting album. There's not really much like that at the moment. I know there are some themes of that feel a little bit cliche. You know, oh, we're all young, let's go to a party, let's get drunk, let's do things that we probably shouldn't, you know, that kind of thing. But Lorde puts an interesting spin on it in this album, and pretty much most of the songs are based around this concept. I wouldn't call it a concept album, but there's an underlying theme to it, which I really like. So we have Green Light to start off with, which really opens up the album really well. It's a great album opener, a great hit single. I really enjoyed it, as I said. Then we come into two other really sort of, I wouldn't call them bangers, because that sounds a bit stupid, but really sort of big pop songs. Which are called Sober and Homemade Dynamite, the latter of which is my favourite out of those two. Sober is a bit more sort of brooding, a bit more sort of, there's a bit of build-up going on there, with some nice sort of trumpet parts to it actually, which I quite liked. More of a traditional pop song as opposed to Green Light. There's no massive key change in the middle of the song, you know, we're not talking Living on a Prayer key change here, we're talking Homemade Dynamite is my favourite. I really like the lyrics. It sounds really cool. It's drenched in reverb, but it doesn't sound cliche. It sounds really classy, actually. Like she sang it in a massive church, and it's just... I really like the lyrics as well. It's a pretty simple song. The chord progression's the same throughout, but it works because of the changes in instrumentation and texture. Lovely piece of work. So the album opens up with these three really sort of hitty, poppy kind of songs that are sort of... You could say made for the radio if it wasn't for the swear words in the latter one. It takes a little bit of a turn when we hear the Louvre, which is the fourth track on the album. This starts off as a nice sort of a little acoustic number. Felt a little bit, I know I say cliche a lot, but I thought like, okay, I've kind of heard this before. But then it builds up, you get this nice little snare hit to it, and then the chorus, the broadcast, the boom, 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 make them all dance to it. It's again, kind of unconventional. I think one of the key things I get from this album is that Lorde is very good at combining the conventional and the unconventional. And in some cases, she really reminds me of Kate Bush, actually. I think that's a very obvious comparison to make, and I'm sure that people have made that already. Especially on one of the tracks on the album, it's called The Writer in the Dark. It's the 9th track on the album? 8th or 9th. Near the end. It's a gorgeous little piano ballad, and it absolutely builds up into this sort of drenched in sort of orchestra and everything like that. There's it going on, and it's just these beautiful, the way that Lorde sings it, multi-tracked sort of in octaves, so you've got the lower part and a higher part an octave above each other, and it works so well. The way she really conveys this message of sort of being kind of almost psychopathic in the way that she's singing it. I love you till your breathing stops. I love you till you call the cops on me. It's good lyrics. It sort of makes it sound a little bit crazy, and it kind of reminds me of Kate Bush, that song in particular. But the way that she does it, mixes these sort of experimental and pop music together in a way that Bush did so well on albums like The Hounds of Love and The Central World. Another standout track for me would be Supercut, which is again right next to Writer in the Dark, and it's the classic sort of against each other, they juxtapose each other really nicely. We've got this really nice piano ballad, and this album has a couple, not just Writer in the Dark. There's another song called Liability, which I also was a big fan of. She's really good at this, I think, conveying these emotions through piano ballad. It's good stuff. Supercut is a much more dancey song, and I would be surprised if she didn't release it as a single. Again, it feels a bit more poppy, but it's more complicated than that. It's not your simple sort of, I just wrote this in 10-minute pop song that I hate. It's really well written. Again, I know I've said this already about Homemade Dynamite, but the production on this song is fantastic. Everything is really it's got sheen to it. It's not overly glossy, the production's not over the top, but it's just enough to make it feel like a really well written pop song. The chord progression is really great. In the pre-chorus, when you've got this sort of kick snare rhythm to it, that sort of suddenly comes in, and it suddenly becomes a dance track, and this sort of almost really cool bass line coming in beside it as well, with some synths over the top. This is probably one of the more synthy tracks on the album. The song itself is about a failed relationship, which is interesting, because you wouldn't expect that in a song like that, but it feels, it works. Again, it's, I think the word to use it is a really interesting contrast, but that works really nicely. And Supercut fades out a little bit into the background. The final track that I'd say really stands out amongst the rest is the closer, which is called Perfect Places, the second single off the album, which is probably it represents the theme the best out of all the songs. She sings in the chorus, "I love the things we're taking, because we're young and we're ashamed, sends us to perfect places." Da, 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 da. And again, one of the more poppy songs on the album, and it's actually these songs that stand out the most to me, which is interesting, considering I'm not the world's biggest pop fan. But there we go. It ends the album so well, in the same way that Greenlight started it. The album almost feels bookended by these two massive singles, and in the middle, it's a bit more complex, a bit more interesting, a bit more experimental. That's what I really like about this album. And there's something for both pop fans and some people who are looking for a bit more depth in their music, people like me, for instance. And I really got a lot out of this album. Really enjoyed it. I've talked a lot about how I've enjoyed it. Some of the cons of the album, if it was from a personal point of view, I would have rearranged the structure a little bit, because there are times where you get quite slow songs all together, and in cases it did sort of blur a little bit into one around the middle of the album, I'm not gonna lie. Especially after Liability, you get this song called Hard Feelings / Loveless. Love the track, but the way it sort of blends into the next song, which is called Sober 2, in brackets Melodrama, sort of more orchestral, sort of blurs into it a little bit, and then that almost sort of blurs a little bit into Writer in the Dark. And if it was up to me personally, I would have spread those out a little bit and put a bit more of a sort of a poppier song in the middle, just to not break it up, because it's not boring, but to have variety, effectively, because I feel at times that's what the album needs. You've either got two types of songs really on this album. You've got the sort of the more poppy, upbeat, radio-friendly hits, which, yes, radio-friendly. I say that in a cynical way, but they are very well written, and as I say, the production's really good, and they're really interesting to listen to. And then the second type would be more sort of slow-down, stripped-back ballads like Liability and Writer in the Dark. And both of these types of songs she does really effectively, but it feels like the transition between these two types of songs feels a little bit awkward in places. But apart from that, I really enjoyed the album a lot. It's really well written, well produced. I think Jack Antonoff out of the band Fun produced it on this occasion and co-wrote some of the songs with Lorde. And he did a really good job of that. Lorde herself, her voice comes across fantastically. Her ability to write songs does as well. It's a very well written, really interesting album. One of my favourite albums of 2017 so far. For that reason, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10, which is quite high. It's very promising, but it is a really good album. I really enjoyed it. So anyway, that's the review for today, effectively. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry again that I've been absent for a little while, but there we go. I'm back now, back with a bang. And I'm going to be uploading several videos. It's the summer holidays now, effectively, so I haven't got exams for a little while. So I'm going to be talking about a few artists coming up: Kendrick Lamar, Haim, there, and then a few sort of more classic artists as well. But there are a few albums that have come out so far that I really enjoyed, I really want to talk about, so they'll be up pretty soon. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and if you want to hear more content from this channel, please click the little red box below and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.